Sony released a few new soundbars this year. The HT-A9, which isn't really a soundbar and takes a pretty different approach than what a lot of us are used to, and I'm still desperately trying to get my hands on right now. The HT-A5000 and its bigger brother, the HT-A7000, which is what we'll be looking at today. It's been almost 4 years since they've released any high-end soundbar systems, so does the HT-A7000 live up to the hype? What's up guys, Jonah Mathis here. There was a lot to take in and evaluate when looking at this soundbar, especially when listening to it. The overall performance was pretty shocking to say the least. Before we jump into things, I need you to take 2.1 seconds to click the like button on this video. It gets the YouTube algorithm on my side and helps my channel grow. I'd also like to mention that Sony sent this system to me for testing purposes. I'll be sending it back to them after this video is released. I always have full creative freedom to say whatever I want about any system that's sent to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't accept it and I would just go buy it myself. But different brands sending products to me makes it so much easier to test and create videos quicker and more efficiently. I hope that makes sense. With that said, let's find out what the system is actually made of. The HT-A7000 soundbar is beautifully designed, with a black metal grille on the front, a glossy top, and a fine cloth covering the two upward-firing speakers and wrapping down to the sides. It's a very large soundbar with a length of about 51 inches, so I wouldn't be placing this under a display that's smaller than about 60 inches. It'll look a little odd. There are touch capacitive buttons on top of the soundbar and a pretty small LED display underneath the front metal grille. The soundbar by itself supports up to 7.1.2 channels of audio. There are 5 front speakers and 2 dual beam tweeters, which make up the front 7 channels, then 2 built-in subwoofers that are merged together for the 1 subwoofer channel, and 2 upward firing speakers for the 2 channels of height audio. So the channel layout is a little complex here, but each channel only has a single dedicated driver supporting it, which is a little strange, I have to admit. Also, pretty strange to see there are built-in subwoofers. Usually I say these are a complete and total gimmick, but I'll get into that a little bit later. In terms of connection support, naturally it supports HDMI eARC, and it actually supports HDMI 2.1 on all of its HDMI ports. This is great for you next-gen gamers out there who've been lucky enough to acquire a PS5 or Xbox Series X, as you can get 4K 120Hz pass-through with this system. It also has both digital optical and auxiliary inputs. I don't really recommend that you use either of these, as it will severely limit the audio quality going to the soundbar. And lastly, it has an S-Center output. This port is used to connect to a compatible Sony TV that has an S-Center input. This feature allows the TV's internal speakers to also play the center channel of audio. It's pretty cool. I haven't been able to test this myself, but I've heard from many that Sony TVs that have acoustic surface audio, where the audio is kind of basically projected from the front of the TV, makes a noticeably good difference. I've also heard that if the Sony TV doesn't have acoustic surface audio, then it makes it sound much worse and it's really not worth using. But I can neither confirm nor deny these things. This is simply what I've heard others say. What's also really nice about this soundbar is you're able to connect a wireless subwoofer and 2 surround speakers to it. You can connect either the Sony SW3 or SW5 as a wireless subwoofer and the RS3S speakers as surround speakers. These components simply need to be plugged into power, then paired with the soundbar in its settings menu. The setup process for the soundbar turned out to be pretty simple and straightforward. First, you need to connect the soundbar to your Wi-Fi network. This is done through the Sony Music Center app, which is available on both Apple and Android devices. Sony did step up their game and they integrated a built-in UI, so the pairing of additional Sony components like the sub and surround speakers to the soundbar is done through the TV's display by using the provided remote control. The process for pairing the whole system together is quite unique to say the least, but at least it isn't a hassle. In fact, pairing additional components to the system is just one feature of many that the UI provides. The UI is broken down into 3 different categories: watch, listen, and setup. In the watch category, you're able to control each of the inputs on the soundbar. When you navigate over to the listen category using the Sony remote, you'll see all of the music streaming options available. This includes Bluetooth, USB, auxiliary, Spotify Connect, Chromecast, Alexa, and finally, Sony's 360 Reality Audio, which streams from Amazon Music Unlimited, Deezer, and Tidal. I use Tidal a lot for music testing with this system. Now, setting the system up is super easy, but the amount of control in the advanced settings menu is an understatement. Managing the speakers, audio, HDMI, Bluetooth, system, and network settings all from a single hub, as well as having the ability to reset the device and check for software updates, is just crazy. It's really simple. One of my favorite parts of the UI was the speaker settings. What makes it stand out the most is the ability to manually adjust the distance to the wall and to the ceiling by inputting the height and width for each individual speaker. It will definitely take more time than the automatic option, but this would allow you to manipulate and fully customize your 3D bubble. You're also able to individually adjust the speaker levels for each channel. It even shows you a visual of each channel as you go to adjust it. Now, the built-in user interface is really cool, something that I haven't seen with any other soundbar yet. It literally looks like an AV receiver settings menu. But it also has the app, again, which is the Sony Music Center app. It looks a little outdated and doesn't have near the number of controls as the built-in user interface, but the main things you might control with the app may be the sound mode, the subwoofer volume, and rear speaker volume. You probably won't use about anything else. But that's really all I'm going to say about the app. I just don't think it's worth going into a ton of detail here. The remote for this soundbar looks a bit older and not as modern as some of the newer ones, but it offers a lot in terms of control. It has buttons for individual inputs, individual sound modes, toggles for a few of the audio processing features, level controls for the rear speakers and subwoofer, and more. Probably the most important button is the home button. This is what brings up the built-in user interface that I've discussed a lot already. Still wish I could adjust levels for each channel without going into the UI, but at least it offers that functionality somewhere. So I've tested this soundbar by itself with a lot of different movies, mainly Ford vs. Ferrari and John Wick in Dolby True HD, and a few Dolby Atmos Netflix movies. Later on, I'll talk about my thoughts when using the A7000 SW5 Subwoofer and RS3S surround speakers. But for right now, I'm only talking about the A7000 itself. I also tested a little bit before and after running the sound field optimization. I wanted to see if there'd be a noticeable difference after running it. And I've got to say, it didn't make a very large difference for my living room. It may make a difference elsewhere, but for us, it wasn't massive. The main difference I noticed was the accuracy of the virtual surround effects, meaning the front wide channels of audio. It improved them slightly, but it's certainly not a night and day difference. I still think it's worth running though. After all, the audio calibration literally takes like 30 seconds. So the details coming from the front of the room are generally very, very good. The roar of cars driving across the screen are highly accurate and exhilarating to listen to. In my opinion, the height channels do a very good job of producing the overhead sound effects. They're crisp and very easy to interpret. The transition from the front to the height channels is also pretty seamless. It doesn't seem like there's any gap in the audio there. Now keep in mind that my ceiling is a little over 9 feet tall and is completely flat. How well the height channels can perform varies drastically and dramatically depending on the height and the angle of your ceiling, in addition to where you are actually sitting. The front sound imaging, what some may refer to as soundstage, sounds very wide and very tall. Definitely not a fully enveloping 3D bubble, more like a half 3D bubble, which is what you would typically expect from a standalone Dolby Atmos soundbar. Now, I've said a lot of nice things about the A7000 so far, but it does have some major downsides that I'd like to bring up now. The quote-unquote built-in dual subwoofers don't do a good job at all. I've said built-in subwoofers are a gimmick and a marketing ploy in the past, and I'm still standing by that with this system. They just don't perform well. They can sound pretty muffled, try to push themselves a bit too much in some scenes, and overall don't provide much feel of bass in the room. I found myself turning the built-in subwoofer down to the minimum setting for certain bass-heavy scenes. However, there are times where they actually do an okay job. I think the low end is definitely better than most standalone soundbars, but still absolutely nothing to brag about. Other than that, the mid-range and higher frequencies were very clear and easy to enjoy. Dialogue sounds very good with this system. You can turn on the voice enhancement setting in either the app or with the remote control that can improve it for some scenes that are, kind of quiet, but 90% of the time, I felt no need to really do so. Overall, I really enjoyed watching and using the soundbar for movies and TV, but felt myself wanting much more low end. What I love about listening to music on this system is how it displays the music playing on screen and the various methods in which you can play audio to it. Spotify Connect, Chromecast, and AirPlay all work very well for the most part. Anyways, vocals and general music are fine. Nothing to write home about, but the main issue is again when some of the lower frequency bass notes are attempting to play. It just completely struggles to play the low end bass punches. The bass notes that are not so low are actually pretty acceptable, acceptable. It's definitely better than what most standalone soundbars can produce, but still not very impressive. I would still happily go with the Sonos Arc if I mainly listen to music, but I don't. I'd also like to mention that I enjoyed music more in the music sound mode and movies and TV more in the cinema sound mode. Kind of seems obvious if this is the only soundbar you've ever owned, but this is very rarely the case with most other systems. In general, I really didn't like listening to music with just the soundbar itself. I enjoyed it much more when I had the subwoofer and surround speakers connected, but I'll get into that in just a minute. Testing the soundbar by itself wasn't bad at all, but I was pretty excited to see the difference a subwoofer and surround speakers could actually make. I tested each of them with the soundbar and then the whole system together. I'd love to say I was surprised, but I really wasn't. The subwoofer and surround speakers did exactly what I expected them to do. They made a massive, dramatic difference to the whole experience. Since most people are purchasing the system to watch cinematic movies, you can imagine that the subwoofer makes leaps and bounds compared to the surround speakers. The soundbar does an excellent job with the 3D audio. The one thing it was really lacking was the bass. By adding in the Sony SW5 Subwoofer, it takes this system to a whole new level. The SW5 adds so much weight and depth to whatever you're watching, further immersing you into the audio experience. The low end is very, very clear and helps create bass-heavy and action-packed movie nights. With that being said, the surround speakers are still great. Each part of the system works excellently with one another. If you decide to get either one of these additional components or both, I think it's going to be well worth it. The RS3S speakers enhance the surround sound tremendously, and for only $350, they're an absolute steal. I would recommend adding the subwoofer first, so you can increase the range of audio and get much more deep and rich bass, because that's what this system really needs. Now, Sony does offer two different subwoofers that are compatible with the A7000, the SW3 and SW5. Which is the one that I've tested. The SW3 comes in at $398 and the SW5 comes in at $698. From what I've heard, the SW5 is the go-to option. Yes, it's $300 more expensive, but from everything I've read, it makes a much larger impact on how the system can actually sound. If you find yourself wanting to expand the system even further, the surround speakers will not disappoint. In the future, I'm hoping Sony comes out with a newer version of the RS3S speakers that have upward firing drivers in them. I've requested this from every manufacturer at this point. This would further enhance the great 3D audio bubble that this system already provides. My recommendation is to get the A7000 and SW5 together if you can, then add the surround speakers later on if you want to. I think you'll be much more satisfied with your purchase. And kind of off topic here, but I did get a confirmation from Sony that after adding the subwoofer and surround speakers to the A7000, the channel configuration stays at 7.1.2 channels. This likely means that the soundbar is modifying what the two built-in subwoofers are playing, which in turn makes the soundbar perform even better. From what I can tell, it tones down the built-in subwoofers quite a bit. The vocals, dialogue, and left and right channels of audio become quite a bit more clear. I'd also like to mention that I tried out Sony's 360 Reality Audio through Tidal on this entire system. Songs with this format definitely sound a lot better and can be really awesome to listen to. However, this isn't the case for all 360 Reality audio tracks. Some are really great to listen to and some not so much. Kind of seems to be hit or miss in this area. For the songs that sound really great, it performs closely to the Sonos Arc system. If all songs perform this well, I'd really love listening to music on it, but this just isn't the case. And 360 Reality Audio with just the soundbar isn't really good either. Doesn't perform much better than standard music tracks. Just thought I would mention that. The Sony HT-A7000 Soundbar has some large shoes to fill at a price tag of $1,300. For this matter, any soundbar for that much money is hard to justify for a large majority of people. Sony put a lot of effort into creating a soundbar that is really impressive. All of the added features, bells and whistles, and just the overall quality are things that you can look forward to for a long time to come. In some of the testing I did, there are some shortcomings that I covered which Sony could improve on, but nothing that would deter me from having the soundbar in my own living room. Even then, I still don't think you should go for the soundbar by itself. It's such a disservice to what the system is capable of when you add in the subwoofer. Again, that's not saying the soundbar is bad, it's just so much better with the subwoofer. In total, that's pretty hard to justify when it comes out to $2,000 in total. I think around $1,600 or so for the pair is a much more justifiable and fair price tag. But unfortunately, I don't really see this happening in the near future. If the price is justifiable for your budget, then I would highly recommend it. If not, I would check out my recent video on the best Dolby Atmos soundbars of 2021 to see some of the other great options that are out there. That video includes the Sonos Arc surround system, the Bose Soundbar 900 with a bass module 700 and surround speaker 700, the Samsung HW-Q950A, Clip Cinema 1200, and the complete Sony system that this video just covered. It's a super long and in-depth video, but I think it's been helpful for a lot of people so far. So definitely check it out if that's something that you're interested in. And before you go, make sure you follow me on Instagram at JonahMathis_YT. And also sign up for my newsletter. I send out weekly emails about different things going on in the home theater and home entertainment spaces. I try to be, helpful with these emails and not spammy, so I'd appreciate it if you'd sign up. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.